So, there are rumors circulating, and these are unsubstantiated rumors, people, so don't come back at me if it turns out not to be true. But there are rumors circulating that Dillian Whyte, who we know is being lined up to potentially fight on the AJ Ruiz undercard in Saudi Arabia, that we know is a fact. But the rumor is that his opponent might be none other than the man who once declared that he walks the earth like a god, Charles Martin. So Charles Martin has been talking to Sky Sports recently. This is one thing which has raised the suspicion of some fans, the fact that Sky Sports have taken such an interest in this man when he doesn't have any major fights coming up, as far as we're aware, in terms of major fights that have been announced. So the fact that they're talking about him now, is it just because of his association with Anthony Joshua in the past? Is that why they're still interested in him? Or is he being lined up to fight Dillian Whyte, as some people suspect? Dillian Whyte versus Charles Martin is actually not a bad fight. And some people have said this is the reason why the pay-per-view price has been bumped up to £25 to accommodate Dillian Whyte's purse. That's what some people are saying. Because Dillian Whyte don't come cheap. He's been fighting on pay-per-view for a couple years now. He's been making millions for a couple years now. So if he was to fight somebody on the AJ Ruiz undercard who is literally a walkover, then perhaps you wouldn't need to bump the price up. But if he's going to go in there against somebody who actually does have a little bit of talent, is a former world heavyweight champion, then he's probably going to be, he's going to want to be compensated for it. Now, Charles Martin is widely ridiculed. Many people say he is the worst heavyweight champion of all time, which, those people don't even know all the heavyweight champions who have existed. So it's a ridiculous claim for people to make. They're not boxing historians, the vast majority of them. They don't know all the heavyweight champions that have been around in history. I don't know all the heavyweight champions that have been around in history, but I know a hell of a lot more of them than most people who say Martin is the worst. Yeah, there was a hell of a lot of heavyweight champions in the 1980s, for example, when the belts were fragmented, who many people who know Charles Martin don't know the heavyweight champions that existed in the 80s, prior to Mike Tyson becoming undisputed. So anyway, he is widely ridiculed. He has lost twice, Anthony Joshua, in 2 rounds, and that was a funny fight when you watch it back. It was funny at the time, even more funny when you watch it back. Not just because of the nonsense that Martin was saying in the lead up to the fight, coming to the ring in that ridiculous king outfit with a crown on his head, and then getting into the ring with those shiny leather shorts that were far too tight, looking like batty riders in there. And then the way he capitulated in the second round, got dropped twice with the same punch. And look, that can happen to anybody, really. But still, he had an air of comedy about it, that fight. And Charles Martin's name has been associated with comedy like a joke of a boxer since. But for me, he did go some way to redeeming himself in the Adam Kaunaki fight. He says he didn't have adequate prep for that. He says his prep could have been better. But, all fighters say that, don't they? Nonetheless, Kaunaki, who was on the ascendancy, who has stopped most people that he's fought, wasn't able to stop Charles Martin or even come close. In fact, Charles Martin rocked Kaunaki late in that fight several times, and I would have loved it to have been a 12-rounder, because after the end of 10, the crowd were cheering, they were loving it, and so was I. If that fight had gone longer, maybe Charles Martin might have pulled off an upset. I mean, it's possible. Yeah, I'm not saying it would have happened, but he was landing enough good shots and he was shaking Kaunaki in those last few rounds. But more than anything, Charles Martin proved his toughness in there, because he stood toe-to-toe. He didn't quit. He didn't take a knee or anything like that. Didn't go down. He stood toe-to-toe with a very, very tough game, aggressive Adam Kaunaki. So he won some respect back with that performance, just in terms of the heart and toughness he showed. Then he beat Greg Corbin. He was the first guy to beat Greg Corbin. Not a particularly good fighter, let's be real, but he was undefeated at the time. And he looked good in that fight. He was throwing snappy punches, combinations. He was in control throughout against Greg Corbin. Then he fought Daniel Martz, who's just a habitual loser. Got rid of him. So he is on the path of redemption, and he's one of Andy Ruiz's regular sparring partners as well, which will definitely help him, not just from, a physical perspective, but mentally it will help Charles Martin being a regular sparring partner of Andy Ruiz, because he'll be able to use Ruiz as a yardstick to let him know where he's at, how far off he is from competing at world level again. Because if he's sparring with a champ in a gym every week or every other week, then, it's going to give him a confidence boost. As long as he's not just getting battered around the ring every session, then he'll probably feel, you know what, yeah, I'm starting to do a little better against Andy. I think I can take on some of these top guys again. Will one of those top guys be Dillian Whyte? Is this the potential banana skin for Dillian Whyte that I talked about in a video the other day? Yeah, could Dillian Whyte, from what I can remember, hasn't fought any southpaws. Has he fought a southpaw as a pro? If he has fought a southpaw, it must have been a journeyman. Because looking through the good fighters he's faced, from AJ, Chisora, Elenius, Brown, Parker, Rivas, none of them were southpaws. Dillian Whyte is a guy who does tend to struggle with his balance at times, particularly if you give him movement. If you stand in front of Dillian Whyte, he can hold his balance a lot better and hit you with some very hard shots. But if you give him some movement, he tends to struggle with the balance. Charles Martin, I'm not saying he's a heavyweight Pernell Whitaker, but he can move a little bit. He is 6'5", he is a southpaw. He does throw combinations, his hand speed is not bad. He does have some pop there. I personally think if this fight happens on the AJ Ruiz undercard, it's a potential banana skin for Dillian Whyte. I really do believe that. I'm not saying I'm picking Charles Martin to win. I'm just saying, under the circumstances, given what Dillian Whyte has been through in recent months, and, potentially his mind not being 100%, Charles Martin could be a banana skin. It's a fun fight. It's a fight I like. And hey, since Dillian Whyte is not going to get a shot at Deontay Wilder anyway, why not fight Charles Martin? What's he risking? Yeah? Wilder ain't going to fight him. I mean, they're talking about this PBC belt. So let's say Ruiz beats AJ in the rematch, unifies with Wilder, then they're going to throw the belts away and have a PBC belt as their main belt. Maybe the WBC will work in conjunction with PBC, because the WBC seemed very close with PBC, with Al Heyman. So maybe they'll merge, WBC and PBC will merge, and the PBC belt will almost be endorsed by the WBC. It could be something like that. That could help give the PBC belt more weight in the eyes of the fans. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. A potential fight between Dillian Whyte and Charles Martin. What do you think would happen? Do you think Dillian Whyte would dispense of him easily? I mean, you've got people like Tom Little recently saying that he thinks, based upon his sparring experiences with AJ and Dillian Whyte recently, he thinks that Dillian Whyte would beat AJ in a rematch right now. He thinks he's the more improved fighter. Well, will that be proven out by Dillian Whyte fighting Charles Martin and blasting him away in a couple of rounds? Or will he actually have a very, very tough night's work against Charles Martin? I suspect the latter. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What's happening about. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.